You're listening to Chapter 7, Pregnancy Tales. How the days went while you were blooming within me. I remember each upon each, the swelling changed planes of my body, and how you first fluttered, then jumped, and I thought it was my heart. An excerpt from Audre Lorde's 1968 poem, Now That I Am Forever with Child.
My pregnancies are always kind of difficult. It's like I gained like 80 pounds and I'm like unhappy and always nauseated. But Tiare's was easier. Lily Noise was way harder.
Ciara was going through it this time around. This pregnancy with Lilinois was no joke. She thinks it has a lot to do with the Hawaiian goddess Pele.
She's real. And she's real intense, and she rules the islands, especially this island, and she is a goddess of fire, like literally. And one of the things is, the day that Lilinois was conceived, she went off. Like she started flowing.
Known for her power, Pele, or Madame Pele, is the creator and destroyer of land. Legend has it that she created the Hawaiian Islands, and she rules over all the volcanoes on the Big Island, where Ciara and her family call home. Like,
that's when we had a huge, how big was that earthquake?
6.
It had to have been more than that.
Like 6.
It was almost like a 7. It was so huge. It was like so crazy. Like, Lilinois was conceived that morning, and then like we had like the earthquake, and then Pele went off. Like she started flowing, and it was really bad, and it lasted for like 9 months.
Yeah.
I mean, it took out so many people's homes, and it was a really crazy flow. And like the whole time I was pregnant.
As Pele showed off, Ciara's body was in tune to the goddess's energy. But she was feeling physically drained as her body pulled and stretched to make room for her growing girl. Beyond that, this pregnancy didn't put Ciara in the best of moods.
It's just because we couldn't do anything or go anywhere, and all I could do was sleep, and I kept getting bigger and like sick, and like I couldn't walk. Did I mention I couldn't walk?
Ciara didn't really feel like herself this time around. And yet that same off feeling was a sign of big news for Shayla.
I thought I might be, because at that point, it's just like, I can tell when I'm pregnant. It's just like, something's off, I think I'm pregnant. So I took a pregnancy test, and I saw that I was pregnant, and so I showed him.
So when Shayla and Eric saw the double lines on the pregnancy stick, the news hit different. After she and Eric had their son Samuel at home in 2015, they moved to Arizona, where over the next 4 years, they welcomed sons Jeremiah, Messiah, and David. Even though none of their previous pregnancies had been planned, and this one wasn't either, each baby forced Shayla and Eric to rise to the occasion. And in doing so, it made their marriage stronger. Deep down, Shayla knew that she and Eric were ready for this baby, probably now more than any time before.
I felt like it was us actually taking our choice back, because in between the first one and the middle ones, there was just all this uncertainty. Were we having too many kids? Are we having them too close together? Are we ruining our lives? And so by the time we got to EJ, we had answers on all of these questions. So we were a lot more sure, and we had kind of decided that we're going to celebrate this and that this is a good thing, and we meant to do it, and it's okay that we've done this. So it was excitement, decided excitement.
And then the pandemic hit. Confusion, fear, anxiety, it all set in. Everything was uncertain, and all the emotions were swirling, especially in those early weeks.
Anasia was feeling it all too, and balancing it against her excitement. She just learned that she too was pregnant. The sperm donor insemination process had finally been successful, and Anasia was on her way to life as a biomom. Exactly what she'd been wanting.
So excited, but like so nervous because I didn't want to be excited. It was like, it's too soon to be excited. And then like April, like second week of April hits, and people are getting serious about the pandemic. So now I'm really freaking out. I'm like, if I get sick, like, am I gonna lose this child?
She worried about the what ifs of becoming pregnant during a pandemic. Not to mention, she had 2 miscarriages before. She wanted to tell her friends and family, but she just didn't want to get ahead of herself.
And like people are like talking to me, like people that know I've been trying to conceive, they're like, how you been? Like, are you going to stop now because of the pandemic? And I want to be like, hey, though, the test is positive already. Like,
instead of telling everyone at once, Anasia, in her own way, slowly let her loved ones in on the good news.
And I ended up telling 7 other people, like 8's my favorite number. And so like I do a lot of things in 8s. And so I told 7 other people, and my brother was one. And he's like, well, congratulations, but like, you good? And I was like, no, Drew, I'm not good. I was just like, I'm so scared. Like, if this pandemic hits me, I have like a weak immune system. Like, if I catch COVID, like, I don't think this baby's going to survive. Like, or one of us isn't. I had so many fears in that early stages of COVID.
While all she wanted to do was stay in, tucked away at home, Anasia knew she had to start looking for prenatal care as soon as possible in Ames.
In my first trimester, I was trying to find good care. Like, I wasn't even looking for great care. I was just like, if I could just get some good care, that would be nice. And I literally started reaching out to Black friends and Black mothers that I knew, asking them, like, where did you go? Were there issues you had? Because I had that in the back of my mind, that stigma of, like, they aren't going to care for me the same way they're going to care for the majority of the population here, which is white. And so I was just like, I don't know where to go, where to start. Like, going to my OB was one thing when I just needed like a checkup, or when I was doing, my general STD tests or something like that. But going to them for my life I'm about to bring into this world, I was like nervous and scared, but there weren't a lot of options. So it was like, if I was back home, I know I'd have more options, but I don't want to go back home to Cleveland. Like, I got a job, and so it was just a lot of unnecessary sweating, I guess the way to put it.
Anasia ultimately decided to move forward with her doctor, but she still wanted to make sure she and baby Isaiah were getting the best care possible. She remembered that her friend, Jasmine Brooks, had just finished doula training and started her own practice in town. So she called her up.
And I was like, hey, I need a doula. And she's like, oh my God. Oh, are you pregnant? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I was actually pregnant last year when you saw me in the vitamin section at Walmart. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, when you had Jordan with you, and that's her husband. I was like, so I ain't say nothing. And it was really early on. I was trying to buy some prenatals because like no one told me where to go or what to do. And so I was like, Google. And so they're like, try prenatals. And I'm like, which prenatals are best for Black people? Like that, because I didn't know if it was the difference. And I couldn't ask my doctor these questions. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable asking the doctor, like, will stuff affect me differently? And he didn't seem like he was going to have the answer. So I didn't ask him those questions about, will it affect me differently as a Black woman?
But Jasmine had all the answers, and then some. Above all, she was willing to be Anasia's doula and was eager to support her on this journey.
Over in Hilo, Ciara kind of found herself in a similar predicament. The birth of her oldest daughter, Tiare, was so beautiful. Ciara wanted to recreate it again, down to the tiniest detail. She wanted to work with the same midwives as last time, including Tanya Smith Johnson, who was now a certified professional midwife, stationed on the island of Oahu. The two had kept in touch over the years, so Tanya was thrilled about supporting Ciara and Daryl with this second birth. The only thing was that this plan meant that Tanya would have to fly into Hilo every so often for Ciara's prenatal care, for the birth, and for postpartum care too. Flying between islands for medical care is pretty common in Hawaii. Everything seemed to be coming together, exactly as Ciara imagined.
What happened was I started bleeding really bad, and I thought I lost the baby. So I had to go get medical attention. We did an ultrasound or whatever, because I'm not about ultrasounds either, but we did, for that. We didn't see anything. And then I was like, well, I got to find a midwife here because I can't, I need to be monitored more often than not.
Ciara would have to find a new midwife. Tanya was just too far for the level of care she needed. So Ciara started asking around for recommendations, knowing that she was going to be hard-pressed to find a Black midwife on the Big Island.
I just don't feel like I didn't feel like driving around, and there was basically 2 major ones here, and then I went to her and I was like, well, I like her, I guess, and My friend was like, yeah, she seems cool. So we just, instead of like, going around town, which, it is what it is.
Even though Ciara was paying out of pocket for care, her choice didn't exactly excite her. And her early prenatal visits proved to be the same. It wasn't just because her midwife wasn't Black. Ciara was missing that warm and fuzzy vibe she had with Tanya back when she was pregnant with Tiare. Things were just a lot different this time around.
There were just certain things that she would say that I just didn't agree with, and things that she would say and do. And I was just like, I'm like, we just got to the point where we just like, I just would go to my appointments and not say anything. Okay, I'm just gonna have this baby and call it a day.
Her midwife was by the books and very medical, as Ciara describes it. For instance, when the topic of Daryl wanting to be present during appointments and even catching the baby again came up, the midwife pushed back.
Yeah, they weren't used to men being involved. Like, they were just like shocked.
Ciara did have a doula though, and she was incredibly helpful. But even still, the entire experience with these birth workers was just a different mentality, and definitely a different energy. Ciara realized early on that she would have to be her own advocate up until the very end.
Shayla and Eric had learned the same lessons years earlier after their miscarriage in 2013. Once they found out they were pregnant again in 2014, they turned to Black midwives for their care and would do so for the next 3 pregnancies. Throughout this time, the couple qualified for Medicaid, which they used for mandatory prenatal visits, and even their 3rd birth at a local hospital in Phoenix. And they enjoyed their nurse midwife there too. But the hospital wasn't their vibe, and they always felt more comfortable at home, where they had more control over the birthing process. And in those cases, where Medicaid coverage didn't apply, the Browns often worked with student midwives who offered lower, more affordable rates.
They were awesome. They really are very, very skilled and compassionate people who gave us stellar care in a time when we needed it really bad. So I really appreciate them. But they had their limitations based on their, requirements for the programs that they were in. There was still this block on us doing what we felt was best and safest, and I think I didn't like that. Maybe it's the Southern rebel in me, but I just don't like that.
Their 4th pregnancy gave Eric and Shayla a taste of what more freedom might actually look like. They worked with the same nurse midwife again, but due to marital conflict and ongoing financial woes, they decided to have an unassisted birth, with just the 2 of them at home and Eric catching the baby. So with this 5th pregnancy, the couple started thinking about what care would look like this time around. Yeah, Shayla was a trained doula and all, but she still needed someone to care for her. And where were they going to have this baby? There was a lot to figure out early on.
I wanted to try a birth center this time because I had never tried a birth center. And, thinking like a doula, I'm like, okay, this is the only thing I haven't tried. I think I can share with women, what a birth center is like. So that's what I was thinking initially. But one, I didn't find enough Black women at birth centers. I mean, there were some that were starting to incorporate Black women, but I just was not about to go back on what I had already decided, that there was always going to be a constant, that Black people were going to be attended to me. So there was that, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable going anywhere, actually, especially to leak out my bodily fluids. Like, I didn't feel comfortable with that, so then I thought about a midwife, and then I remembered what Eric wanted to do all this time and catch the baby himself and be the healthcare himself. And I was like, all right.
The thing is, Eric had studied naturopathic medicine. In fact, it's what brought them to Arizona in the first place. So he loved asking questions during Shayla's prenatal visits, assisting the midwives and doulas during labor and delivery, and he'd even caught their last baby, David. So he definitely had the practice, and he surely had the confidence.
I was not skipping along, to do this with him, to be honest. But I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's do this.
Over the coming months, Eric learned firsthand how to provide prenatal care to his wife.
We did blood pressure checks. We did measurements, readjusting the baby. We did when you had, other symptoms. Maybe she had like sinus problems or whatever, like trying to deal with those and get a remedy for that. And just, like I said, trying to be on call as much as possible. Because there were plenty of times I didn't know what to do, or she, I'm not Superman. Like, there were plenty of times I didn't completely know what to do, but show up and say, like, not know what to do with her.
And for Eric, this pregnancy really expanded what care should look like.
To be honest, at first, I don't think I realized how much she needed care. Not her body, not our baby, but her as a person needed somebody to be doing something, checking in. Have you done this? Like, even, she just needed somebody to be checking on the fact that she's carrying my baby. And I didn't do a great job with that at first. I would say maybe the first 2-3 months, maybe first trimester, I was kind of like, chill about it. It's not that I was saying no to anything. I just wasn't stepping up the way I think I did later.
Eric realized that the small gestures would go a long way. Feed and back rubs, massages and belly rubs. It all made a difference.
These were things that I was lucky to be learning in naturopathic medical school. So I was getting practice and a little knowledge on these things here and there. And so I was started to be more regular about it. And we got to where we did a full check at least once a week. We missed a couple weeks, but I was way more consistent.
In many ways, that consistency brought on a whole new calm for this pregnancy. Knowing it would just be the two of them was definitely reassuring to Shayla. But being so far from their family and friends back in Mississippi, the shelter-in-place guidelines started to take a serious toll on her.
I always thought that, this hasn't affected me because, I was already a stay-at-home mom. But at least we were going to church. I was taking the kids out to the park or to the museum downtown. And then when the pandemic hit, I wasn't doing any of that. So, I think I won't say that it created more anxieties because I felt like we were safe and I felt like we were prepared. Like, okay, well, we're going to have our baby ourselves. We're fine. But I was just more lonely, I think. And it was just more isolating.
And on top of that, not everyone was supportive of Shayla and Eric having so many kids back to back, including Shayla's mom.
One thing that she always said to me about kids is that they take your life away from you. So I think she felt like with every baby I was having, I was just giving my life away and that I was, I could be doing something else.
Aside from having Eric and the boys, Shayla felt alone.
I would have wanted to share with, with people, with who I thought should be my support system. I would have wanted to be able to tell people what, how my body was changing, what I was going through, or, take pictures and send it to them, or, I'm thinking about buying this for the baby. What do you think? What kind of baby shower should I, or really somebody else would throw me a baby shower. That would have been great. I guess I wanted to be celebrated and I wanted to be able to celebrate with the people who I thought I should be able to celebrate with. Even though I knew in my mind that I could do this and I had done it before and everything was fine, I had a lot less support. Every connection or community we tried to join, it just wasn't working out. So by then we were completely alone. So I think I just went through it. I don't think I was present for a lot of it, to be honest. And then I still had the other kids to care for. So I don't remember a lot of it. I know I ate a lot of ice cream. And I don't know if that's because I was, having emotions or what, but I ate a lot of ice cream.
While Anasia was a pregnant single woman, her chosen family in Iowa really cared for her. As she approached her second trimester, she was finally ready to tell her family back in Ohio. It was a big deal, and she wasn't sure how they would react. So over the 4th of July weekend, she made the long but familiar drive from Ames, Iowa to Cleveland, Ohio.
I wanted to be able to tell my dad one-on-one, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go make a copy of these keys. I was like, yeah, I'll roll with you. And he's like, yeah, come on. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I got in the car with my dad, and we made the key copy, and we were headed back. And I was like, hey, Dad. He's like, what's up? And I was like, I'm due in December. He's like, due in December? What's that mean? And I was like, Dad, I'm pregnant. And he's like, wait, what? He like pulls over into this parking lot, which was hilarious because the parking lot is across from his house. And so we're sitting in this parking lot. He goes, well, who's the dad? And I was like, I used a donor. And he's like, a what? And I was like, a donor, Dad, sperm donor. He's like, oh my goodness, you kids these days. He's like, my baby's having a baby?
Her dad was surprised, but excited. And he just assumed that she'd come back to Cleveland to have the baby.
He was like, yeah. So when you moving back? And I was like, I'm not moving to Cleveland, Dad. He's like, you're going to have a baby not in Cleveland? Like, and that was his thing. He didn't understand that I wasn't moving back. It was just so weird.
And just like all those years ago, when Anaja's dad tried to convince her to scrap her plans to move to Iowa and come back home, Anaja told her dad no. She knew he meant well, but Anaja was determined to do what felt best for her. Anaja had made a home for herself in Iowa, and that's exactly where she wanted to welcome baby Zay.
Her dad wasn't the only one Anaja was nervous to tell about her pregnancy. A little before she drove to Cleveland, Anaja started dating a friend of a friend. They were taking things slowly, but Anaja really liked her, and it looked like it could go somewhere. The only thing was, Anaja hadn't told her yet that she was pregnant. She was afraid of what her new crush's reaction might be. She wanted to, but she just didn't know how.
I think that was one of the most challenging parts about dating was while pregnant is like, how much can you share and what can you not share and stuff and when to share it. Like I had to share it before we were intimate because I felt like that wouldn't be right for me not to share it before we were intimate in that context. And so like before we actually had sex, I told her like, just so you know, like I should tell you this and stuff. And she was like, I'm not looking to be a parent. Like, I don't think I want to be a parent. And I was just like, okay.
Anaja was hurt, but she understood. The two agreed to remain friends. After all, they loved hanging out together. But then...
I want to say sometime mid-second trimester, because they don't tell you this, but you feel like you need to be sexually active at one point there and there.
So Anaja had an idea.
Like, I want to say a week or two later, we were like, you want to be friends with benefits? I mean, it's a pandemic and we could both like have one person. And she's like, I would do that, sure.
Anaja's pregnancy was going pretty well, but as she entered her third trimester, she noticed she was spotting. She was really worried, so she called her doctor's office.
And I was like, hey, I got spotting, I'm scared. And they're like, it's fine and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, and that happens close to the end. Or if you were having sex or something like that. Like they were saying all these things that can cause a spotting. And I was like, but can I just come in? Like, can you just check? Like, I don't feel him moving the same. And they're like, well, did you feel him moving at all? And I'm like, yeah, but it's not the same. And they're like, well, babies change how they move. And I was like, something just doesn't feel right.
Anaja decided to take matters into her own hands and head to the emergency room where they monitored her and the baby. While she was there, Anaja gave her doula, Jasmine, a call.
And so she helped calm me down, but like nobody wanted to even give me a chance. And like after you've had miscarriages, like they tell you like it could be more dangerous and stuff. Like, so why aren't y'all helping me? Because it was like, this is my body and I'm trying to tell you about my body and you're not listening. Like, I know you're a medical professional and all that's great. But like, homie, I've been with me every day of all my life. So like, if you can listen for a sec, that would be amazing.
It turned out that Anaja and baby Zay were okay. The spotting was just normal spotting. Nothing more, thankfully. But still, it was a lot to take in. The ER visit wasn't just emotionally taxing, it also had an unexpected out-of-pocket cost, over $600. This expense was a blow. Anaja had been doing her best to save every bit she could for her new baby, and all that during the pandemic, when money was already tight to begin with.
Shayla and Eric were dealing with their own financial setbacks during the pregnancy. They'd been saving for a house when they received a final eviction notice in the summer of 2020, and they didn't have much luck finding another apartment in Tempe. So 8 months along in this pregnancy, they dipped back into their savings to relocate their family back home to Mississippi.
Hearing Shayla, Anaja, and Ciara share their pregnancy journeys reminds me of the podcast Birth Stories in Color, into space for Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latino, and multiracial folks that specifically celebrates, mourns with, and supports them in their transformation through birth. You can listen to Birth Stories in Color on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher, and join their community at birthstoriesInColor.com. Wherever you are on your pregnancy journey, know that you don't need a whole new wardrobe, just the basics. Stork is an apparel company with the softest, coziest daily essentials for pregnancy, nursing, and parenting. You can shop this season's looks at storq.com. Now back to the show.
Even though Shayla never planned to be back in Mississippi, being around family was good for her. It gave her a reason to celebrate this fresh new start. Not to mention, now she could have that baby shower she'd been dreaming about for months.
So I'd already started planning to have a virtual baby shower because I was like, we're gonna celebrate this baby. I'm gonna be happy, okay? And I'm about to invite y'all to be happy. Y'all gonna just have to tell me no, or like we're not about to do this. Do you care? A wondering thing. So I had already started to plan a virtual baby shower, but then when it was like we're gonna move, it's like, oh, okay, well then I can have I still end up having a virtual one, but I could be with people. Like his family was here, so his mom cooked and everything for that. So that was exciting.
For Shayla, being celebrated meant so much. For most of this pregnancy, she felt like an afterthought, if she was even thought of at all.
It just felt like everybody was so quiet, and then I had to be quiet. People would tell me, oh, I forgot you were pregnant. Like, how did you forget I was pregnant? And they were saying it as a compliment, like, oh, you're moving around so much, I'll forget. Or look at your face, you don't look pregnant, So I would have liked people to not forget that I was pregnant. That would have been great.
But as much as she wanted to be cared for and wanted to be celebrated, Shayla wrestled with whether or not she was deserving of it, especially when it came to Eric. He was really showing up for her in major ways this pregnancy. Shayla just didn't know if she was worthy of being fussed over.
It's like I knew he took pride in it, but I didn't realize that he was so willing and excited to do it. And if anything I've learned from this last pregnancy is how to depend on him, and that has not been easy for me. I think that's where a lot of the anxiety came from. I felt like he was having to do too much, and it's like, yeah, I'm growing a baby, but I just kept thinking about everything that he was going through and everything that he was doing. Like, you're going to work all day, you're trying to provide, you're trying to do all these things, and you got to take care of me and the kids. It just felt like too much, and I didn't want him to get overwhelmed. I didn't want him to get tired of me. Maybe it's like, if all these other people didn't want to be bothered with me, like, why would you want to be bothered with me? I just felt like a burden, I guess. And I think that was the hardest part of it, is just believing that he wants to do this and letting him do it, and yeah, it was just a really vulnerable position to be in.
Anasia was feeling the same. She had been living away from her family for nearly 15 years. She knew how to take care of herself, and she knew how to take care of her foster kids. But this pregnancy was reminding her that she also needed to let people in to help her, to celebrate her.
We were planning the baby shower, a virtual baby shower. And that was actually exciting because, I made a PowerPoint. Like I said, I like making PowerPoints because I'm special. And so I made a PowerPoint for my baby shower and had some virtual games in it, and making my registry list on Amazon. That was fun. And my friends just put a bunch of stuff. Please, just click on everything that you want, and then that way you'll get some of the stuff and it'll be great. And I was like, okay.
Her friend Pri was right. In a matter of weeks, nearly everything on her registry had been purchased.
And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't want to look on the thank you page and know who bought what yet. I was just saw that the items were purchased, and I was of course, still emotional. So I'm crying and stuff, but it was happy tears at this point. And I hadn't had any real super serious happy tears in a long time. And so it was really nice to have that and be oh my God, my community of people are so amazing. Like seeing how many people wanted to help Isaiah and like be there for him. And then like once all the products started coming to my house, you know, the little notes that come with it and saying like, you know, I wish I could be there for you physically. And like, I'm sorry, coronavirus is holding you away from us, but congratulations. So it was a lot of that.
While all the gifts helped Anasia prepare for life once the baby arrived, she knew that taking care of a newborn was much more than bottles, bibs, and baby toys. For months, she had been working with her doula Jasmine to create a birth plan and map out all the resources she might need, from a lactation specialist to financial assistance.
A lot of the prep was about the delivery process. So like her telling me, you know, the breathing stuff and me being like, yeah, I'll breathe. And realizing I didn't do any of that until she got there and walked me through it again. But that's what she did, a lot of that early on. She talked about how postpartum might affect me. We talked a lot about like when he gets here, what are some resources I think I might need? So how to find those and outsource to those because there's not a lot of stuff going on here.
With her birth plan in place, things were getting really real for Anasia.
Those final weeks before a baby arrives can feel like time moves as slow as ever. Everyone just waiting and waiting for the baby to finally get here. Ciara was doing the same. She kept herself busy around the house while she waited for her baby girl.
Well, you know, I got cloth diapers, so like, you know, getting all the cloth diapers together, and some of them were tiares, so like I was redoing the elastic bands, and you know, I had some of her old clothes, and I would like, you know, just getting her bedroom together. But like her bedroom, we didn't get together until after she was born because I was so sick.
But the day before her due date, suddenly, Ciara started to feel like her old self.
So the whole pregnancy, I have no energy. I wanted to walk, I couldn't walk. I was like, you know, and like my midwife was like, you need to walk. I'm like, I can't. Like, I'm just gonna let you know I'm not. I can't. My vagina's strong, don't worry. That's all you gotta know. But I went. Daryl would always take Tiare to school and I would never go. And then like that morning, I really wanted to get like sourdough pancakes at the Tin Shack. I ate all my breakfast and I'm like, I wanna go walk. And he was like, okay. I was like, maybe I should go to Lava Tree Park, which is my like magical park where like the lava came through there so quickly that it encapsulated like Ohia's, ancient Ohia forest. And I was like, and I would like, there was a small loop that you could walk. I'm like, maybe I should just walk that. I walked that. And then like I walked the whole thing. And then I'm like, I can do it again. And he was like, no, we gotta go get Tiare. So I went to go get Tiare.
So they left to get Tiare from school. When they got home, Ciara took a nap.
And then I got up, I'm like, I wanna go for a walk. And he was like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I just need to go for a walk. I had all this energy. And then we went for a walk. And then I came home and then I took another nap. And all of a sudden, it was like Lily Noy stood up straight, put her hands up and her feet up, like just would, like this in me. And like she was literally all up here. Like, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, oh my God, like what just happened? And then all of a sudden, there's this feeling of like a bowling ball sitting on top of your colon. And then I was like, there's that feeling again, because it was like, it happened with Tiare. And I was like, I think I'm in labor.
In our next episode, we'll join Ciara, Anasia, Eric, and Shayla as they head into labor. Stay tuned for every pulse, pain, and push as they deliver their babies.